Hi everybody, and welcome back to Historical Perspective. I'm your host, Mark Nicholson, and this is my friend Dr. Patrick Blythe from Seminole State College in Stanford, Florida. I got it. And today we're going to do another discussion. We're going to talk about the worst president, such hyperbole, the worst president ever, because we feel like we might yell at each other over this, and we think you'll find that funny. So, Dr. Patrick, will I start us out?
Okay, well, I would like to begin first off with this discussion by saying, this is a fun question, but I'm not necessarily thinking it's a historical question.
No, this is more of a this fun, is us just having a little bit of fun.
Exactly.
The fact that we have historical knowledge and we're going to talk about the worst president ever.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because defining what worst is, and then determining whether a particular president has those characteristics is...
Worst facial hair, Chester A. Arthur.
Yes.
That was awful.
Well, yes, but it was so bad it was good. That's
No, it was just terrible. It looked like crap. He looked silly. He had sideburns to a mustache. It looked silly.
Yes, but but then if you were to talk about facial hair affecting a presidency, you would have to go with JFK and Richard Nixon.
Yeah, that's
and the debate and Nixon's poor 5 o'clock shadow.
See, he'd been sick. He had influenza, didn't he?
Yes, I know.
And
I hate feeling sorry for Richard Nixon, but
that's okay. Richard Nixon felt sorry for himself way more than all the rest. We don't have to, because he felt sorry for himself all the time.
And also to ask this question, we get a little bit political.
Okay.
But I will have to looking at. And I guess to my worst, and how I would define worst. It's not scientific, but that's not necessarily our goal here. And who has had the most adverse effect on Americans, and not just Americans, and people in general, as the United States has become a world power in the second half of the 20th century. So in terms of domestic policies that had the most adverse effect, we'd have to look at, I think George W. Bush, Baby Bush, Ronald Reagan, or Warren G. Harding.
I go with Warren G. Harding because everything he did was corruption.
Yes.
Like, literally the man did not pass a bill.
Yes.
Did not support a bill that was not meant. You had the VA scandal. You had the Teapot Dome scandal. This man was only president for 2.5 years. They had the Harbors scandal. There's at least 5 or 6 major ones, plus tons of little ones. Harry Doherty was his, what was Harry Doherty? Was he Secretary of State? Mm-hmm. Harry Doherty was Secretary of State. This is old Ohio crony.
Oh, yes, and the Secretary of the Treasury.
The Secretary of Treasury, yeah, I'm sorry,
yes.
I got that wrong.
Yeah. Oh, no, Interior.
And Harry Doherty was just...
Again, look this up on the internet to check our facts.
It doesn't matter. Harry Doherty was the political boss of the Republicans from Ohio, and he just ran the White House because Warren G. Harding wanted to play cards and be everybody's buddy and not...
this is where I'm going to defend...
Take the kickbacks. He liked taking the kickbacks.
But here's where I'm going to defend Warren G. Harding.
Okay.
He enjoyed the accoutrements of the office. And I have to give that to him. First off...
He enjoyed them to the point where he didn't do his job.
Exactly. But there's a little... I like that a little bit. There's something to that. But
made up a word to become president.
Yes.
Normalcy is not a word.
Normalcy is not a word.
Normality.
Or normalcy.
No, he said normalcy. Normality is the word.
Normality is the word.
Normalcy was his word. He just made it up.
Well, yes.
Because he wasn't smart enough to know English.
No, but what he did enjoy doing is drinking, smoking, and having sex.
And playing cards.
And playing cards. And those are things I cannot fault him with.
I don't
now, it does turn out, though, that heavy smoking, drinking, and hiding your mistress from your wife are not conducive to long-term health.
Don't forget your bastard child. He also hit his bastard child.
Of course, yes. Interesting, if you're interested in Harding, the Library of Congress is, I was reading about this in the most recent New York Times Magazine, is releasing Warren G. Harding's letters to one of his mistresses, his first mistress before he got into the White House, who was also a German sympathizer during World War I.
Jeez.
And the letters are amazingly and wonderfully explicit. He referred to his penis as Jerry.
Oh, God.
Throughout the letters.
This is not the worst president ever. Are you serious?
Well...
If you call your dick Jerry, you're in trouble to begin with.
No, you're just creative. But
there's a lot of ways I would describe Warren G. Harding creative as not high on the list.
Yes, I mean the corruption. Yes, he has to be dinged a little for that.
The best thing Warren G. Harding did as president, the absolute best thing he did, was die. He died to save himself from being impeached because it was going to happen. He was going to be the first president to ever be kicked out of office.
If there ever was a president that deserved to be impeached, it would have been Harding.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Nixon had it coming because.
Yes.
How come we don't think of Nixon as the worst president?
Well, here's the thing. I think Nixon did do a couple of things.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The EPA.
Yeah. Open China.
Open China. That is huge.
The economy was pretty decent for the most part under Nixon.
Absolutely. He did expand Medicare.
Yeah.
And so various types of Social Security. I mean, was he a horrible person? Of course.
Oh, yeah.
But
Pinochet, Cambodia. I mean, yeah.
Well, yes. I mean, if you're going to talk there, but a lot of that, of course, too, has to be thrown on the back of Henry Kissinger.
Well, they were part and parcel.
Very much so. Yes.
Interlocked species.
But when it came, and of course Nixon's interest, but. That's why I would not give him the title. Now, what my argument for George W. Bush would be is I think it would be difficult to find a president who, of course he had 8 years to do it, but who messed up as much as he did. He took a country that had a massive surplus and a booming economy. Of course, now we know in retrospect that a lot of that boom was artificial. Yes, because
Glass-Steagall being kicked out in the late 90s and things like that.
Which was under Clinton, not Bush.
Yeah, well, all the way back to Reagan and then Carter, of course. And the 79 decision where money became speech corporations people. So
all those things, absolutely. But
it's very tight in that sense.
But the tax cuts, which only helped the balloon, did not really cut taxes for the majority of Americans, but for the hyper wealthy. And I remember many people, in fact, a professor we had in college, talked about, well, what happens if there is an emergency? Isn't it nice to have a surplus? What if we have a war soon? Of course, a lot of that was poo-pooed. Not too long after that, the United States was attacked on September 11th. And I will say I'm not a fan of Bush. I'm putting him up as one of the worst presidents. But Bush did not cause 9/11. Please, for you 9/11 conspirators out there, no. The Bush administration was also extremely inept. It couldn't keep a secret if it tried.
Yeah.
And so how was it to pull off one of the most elaborate schemes in history?
Dick Cheney had a man-sized safe.
Well, yes.
All right. So yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So Bush. How about William Henry Harrison?
Was not in office long enough.
He died after 40 days of being president. In fact, he was ill the entire time he was president. That was a do-nothing president right there.
Yes,
he died.
He did appoint John Tyler, as his running mate, which turned out to be one of his biggest decisions. Tyler, who ran as a Whig, but
I thought the Whigs picked Tyler more than...
Yeah, so they kind of did. The Whigs were weak in the South.
Yeah.
The Whigs were weak in the South. Tyler was the Southerner.
And Tyler ended up being like one of the most ineffectual presidents because the Democrats didn't trust him for changing sides, and the Whigs didn't trust him for being a Democrat. So basically, he sat in the White House for almost 4 years, because like 40 days, just sitting there and until the lame duck period when he annexed Texas. It's like the only thing you can say was significant about his administration was the annexation of Texas, which happened after the James K. Polk had been elected president.
Yes, exactly. And that was mostly done in the Senate anyway. Of course, the annexation of Texas had previously been denied by the Senate. So, now, actually, I would not put Reagan as one of the worst presidents. Bush and Harding are clearly the most inept and the most damaging. Yeah. But the reason I do think Reagan deserves to be in the conversation is I think, in many ways, his... in domestic policy, his use of euphemisms such as the welfare queen to denounce African Americans, to kind of get a divide. I mean, it was one of the most brilliant strategies. Yeah. First started to divide.
I've a hard time judging Bush, and I'm not a fan, really.
Yeah.
But I feel like we need a little more separation to find out just how good or bad he really
was.
Well,
no, this is true. Although I mean, I think we have had enough separation.
Okay.
The war in Iraq, which was
It turns out to be a disaster.
It turns out to be a disaster, and it probably was going to be difficult from the start.
I'm about to take a sniper shot at someone I know you like. Jimmy Carter was not a good president.
Yes. Well, I know, but I wouldn't put him up there as one of the worst presidents.
He was pretty bad. I mean, you got a man.
He did lose to Reagan.
He went to the agricultural department one time because they were having a discussion about the amount of wheat being planted in. I can't remember if it was South Dakota, North Dakota. It was in that area, and he decided to involve himself in this. This is proof that Jimmy Carter was not meant to be president.
Well, and I think not only that, it's also attention to details is a good idea, but at times, especially when you hold a high office, whatever that might be, it's good to hire people that know what they're doing and then let
to listen to those people. I mean, Brzezinski gets cut out for unknown reasons. Even Brzezinski, to this day, like he's in that. I don't know why I got cut out.
Yes. Well, and of course, I think Jimmy Carter is one of. I wouldn't put him as one of the worst presidents next to Harding or Bush. But
well, I wouldn't either, but I just felt like I had to point that out.
He needs to be in the conversation.
He was not a good president. I mean, and then you have your Franklin Pierces and James Buchanans who were just completely inept for the Civil War. And in fairness, then they just weren't the men for the time. But they didn't do anything to prevent the Civil War. But could have they?
If ineptness is one of our features of the worst president, Reagan is last in the picture. I don't think he was that smart. But he was effectual.
He had smart people underneath him who knew how to make the wheels move.
And the Iran-Contra scandal, while morally horrific, was pulled off very well. His Southern strategy that he developed from Nixon, as a man who did not really believe in God, but was able to convince a large number of Christian conservatives that he did, was also fairly impressive too. And to, of course, get poor white people to vote against their economic interests was quite amazing.
They were smart if they could go in and work with Tip O'Neill and they could make things happen.
Well, yeah, and that was
is now.
Well, yes, of course, and of course, I don't think Reagan was, especially second-term Reagan, was as conservative. But I think some of the damage he did do. I mean, foreign policy-wise, I mean, the Iran-Contra scandal was. Horrible.
Yeah.
And
it's
killing
ridiculous.
It was, but not just that. I think in terms of domestic policy, I mean, not that Reagan's policies, whether it be going after unions, whether it be kind of stereotyping people on welfare, whether it be denouncing government programs like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security that actually work, changed the American psyche in so many ways for the worse against the New Deal.
I got it. Worst president ever, Taft, because he was fat.
Yes. Well,
if you're fat, you're not a good president.
Yes.
No. Okay, so let's sum it up. I'm going to stick with Warren G. Harding. I think he was the worst. I mean, the man did nothing. The greatest thing he did ever was die. I mean, sure, Henderson's the same thing, but man, he did a lot of damage before he died. The best thing he ever did was die. If that's your legacy, the fact you died, you weren't very good at being president.
Well, and I agree. I'm going to stick with Bush, mostly because this is when ineptness met evil.
Yeah, and you're a communist.
Yes.
And he's not a communist. I'm making that up, but some people, that might be in the comments, though. This guy's a communist.
Oh, yes.
Actually, Kyle, who watches my videos, write that in the comments just to poke him in the eye.
People watch these?
Yeah, like 7. 7 people. All right, so that's it for Worst President Ever. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed a little historical perspective.